Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Global Games. We're on day 2 of week 2. I'm Raven. Joining me is Soto, of course, and we have Greece versus Hungary coming up next. Looking forward to this one, seeing what Greece can do.
Yeah, I mentioned this at the start of the show that Greece are really a team that might surprise a few people. They don't have any of those big Hollywood names, none of the big 10K streamers, no big major winners in there, but they have players that have a ton of respect, players that are part of core practice groups, behind-the-scenes deck builders for a lot of the top players, as well as players with some of the strongest ladder results out of anyone in the entire scene.
Yeah, Greece is a very impressive country of Hearthstone being there. A lot of the players as well been around for a long time as well, been around pretty much from the start. Players like Deathlore, for example, has been knocking around for a while. We can see the teams, how they're matching up now. Like a Boss, Deathlore, Logan, and Sibukas as well. So versus Exego, Penhardani, Chaincaller, and Xair, I think. Yeah, why not? And yeah, it's going to be a good matchup. Just pretty much a lot of well-known names versus, you know, a few of the less-known names from Hungary. But to be honest, from what we've seen the last couple of days, the lesser-known names seem to be grabbing the advantage at this point.
See some more beautiful shots of these players' home countries. Of course, Greece, a classic holiday destination and one of the most historical countries in the world. Would love to go there, but I fear just melting under the heat of the sun.
Yeah, our delicate British skin not built for it. Hungary, a place I have never been to actually, but also looks pretty nice. That's definitely a big statue up on that hill.
I have walked up to that statue, in fact, yes.
You've just been everywhere.
I have, yeah.
This is really, it makes me look rubbish. I've actually been to a reasonable number of places around the world, but Saul's like, oh yeah, I was in Hungary the other week. Oh, I've been to Switzerland. Oh, I've been here, been there. I'm like, shut up, Saul.
So before I was in Hearthstone, I was part of the yo-yo community, believe it or not. So I have always traveled. Where I wasn't traveling for Hearthstone events and for casting opportunities, I've been traveling for, believe it or not, yo-yo contests. So there is a very long list of countries that I have visited. So I personally very much enjoy doing this event and getting to relive a lot of old memories with this footage we have of some beautiful destinations.
I also believe Sato's a vampire and has been alive for hundreds of years,
That's
which
also
means he's got the time to travel. But looking at these teams now, you can see how they line up. And again, just to go over the format, is a best of 5 within this team. Each player playing effectively one deck in that best of 5. They line up against the player opposite them, and they can pick one of their decks out of the 2 displayed. So Deathlore can pick between Warlock and Paladin, for example, and then it's the first team to 3 wins. And if the teams go to 2-2, it means that there's an ace player who's going to play. We can see is Sibu versus I know, yeah, it's not messing around at all. Which is Sibu versus Exego. If the ace match does happen, we can see it's going to kick off with a Paladin versus Druid matchup. Hunter not being picked for Penhardani, and Warlock not being picked for Deathlore.
Yeah, Druid is a deck or a class that I've been very, very interested in as this tournament develops, because personally, I mentioned this several times yesterday, I'm a big fan of the aggro Druid. It's one of the decks that's been most successful to me. It was one of the highest win rate decks in my Legend climb towards the start of the expansion. It's a deck that continued to perform well for me when I was climbing through Legend, as well as Freeze Mage, which has, of course, been very successful for, I think, a lot of players. But so far in the tournament meta, aggro Druid just hasn't been that well preferred in the games that we've seen. At least people have been going for Ramp Druid and or Jade Druid in the games that we've been seeing. So I'm wondering once again whether we're going to see the aggro Druid being bust out here for Hungary. And now, for the first time in God knows how long, we're not going to have any mystery about why it seems to be 3-on-1. Both players,
3-on-4.
both teams are playing in person, choosing to share their wealth of knowledge and experience with each other in a live environment.
Yeah, and for those that aren't, we'll be doing it on comms, just so you are aware. But yeah, talking of Druid, you know, this morning I was taking my first foray into like Frozen's list, and I'm a fan of that one now. Just heavy ramp. Silly things going on. You play both Deathwings, you Sarah, you play the Anacondas as well to get into some really great positions in terms of how heavy the minions can be.
Yes, and Deathlore is a member of Team Millennium, which is a very, very stacked-looking team these days, alongside a couple of very high-profile names. Ecop former major winner at the True Silver Championship amongst them. And a very storied history. Again, I first met Deathlore, as you mentioned, Greek players seems to have been around forever. And with my vampiric skills, I have also been around forever and first met Deathlore all the way back in the Gfinity Majors, which were a thing that were taking place in the UK over the course of a year or so. And Deathlore was a great guy to hang out with. Him and Hawkeye both were just a lot of fun just to be able to get to know. But he has been around for a long time. But Penadani himself, spring and summer HCT preliminaries, gathering enough points to make it to both of those. 20 points already in 2017, nothing to be sniffed at.
Yeah, I think at Gfinity we went for a drink after the event, and Deathlore and Hawkeye obviously were joining us. I remember him getting like a platter of multiple drinks, like I think like British drink, and trying every single one. This was in London, by the way, so this doesn't make us sound great, but trying every single one, and every single one he was like, nah, it's not that good. So I think me and you just finished them up, just to be gentlemen.
Of course. We will always be gentlemen, especially when free drinks are involved. But yeah, back to the matchup at hand. Paladin versus Druid. Again, Paladin doesn't seem to be too much of a mystery here. There's what we talked about at the start again. There's little tech decisions. How greedy is the deck overall? Are you just jamming a can in your Paladin deck? But mostly it's early Murlocs going into late game power. That's what Paladin has kind of stabilized as doing these days. Druid, more of a mystery. We've seen Jade Druid being favored more by the Southeast Asian players, but we've seen Ramp Druid being having its showing in this tournament already as well. Aggro Druid has had a couple of performances. It had success for Kalento in week 1, but the other players who have brought it haven't been so successful so far.
Yeah, and the success Kalento had was pretty much off the back of one card that kept him in the game, which was Living. He was struggling up until the Living Mana came down. So it looks like you are going to get your wish, though. Hey. I can see a Living Mana there. And then I can also see from Deathlore's side the Murloc opening. And is there a world in which this hand is kept from Deathlore here?
It's ambitious. It's ambitious. It's a little bit slow with no one drop if you're expecting Aggro Druid, because if you're going first, you don't find your one drop. You then let them have one free turn to develop. You then just play a 2/2, and then they have a second turn to even play charges and a buff, for example.
It's what you expect, right?
Yes.
There from the Druid, because if you're against Ramp or Jade Druid, suddenly this looks okay. You know, you can actually just pile on a reasonable amount of pressure without really, making your hand too crazy there, and could win off the back of this. But looks like the Greek players are having in-depth discussion, as are we. I don't think this is a straightforward keep on.
I don't either. No, I agree. I think, yeah, this is probably what I would have ended up with, really greedily looking for that one drop. And now that they're playing Galaka Crawlers as well, that makes a lot more sense, because that's even more insurance that they can find against an aggressive start from an Aggro Druid, which of course does play those 2 pirates in the form of Bloodsail Corsair and Patches.
Yeah, we'll see how it starts here. We can see one of my favorite cards, of course, Enchanted Raven, going to be played as the one drop. And are we going to see Innovate? Are we going to see Coin? Because this could just go off here. Could be Coin, Corsair, Innovate, Runt. Is there any reason not to?
Finger is a reason not to.
Okay.
Innovate, I think when you have Innovate in your opening hand, you always get a little bit greedy with your mulligan to look for Finger, because that's so devastatingly powerful. You saw them throw away a very solid Innovate play in the Shell Shifter, just to look for a more greedy push, but yeah.
Even this smoke line.
I mean, sure, that doesn't look too bad, but there's about to be a 3/4 hitting the board, which actually contests this board shape extremely well. The 2/2 and the 1/1 don't answer it at all unless there wants to be a hero power, and then otherwise it's contesting the 5/2. So this might just end up having to be a hero power pass turn for Hungary, because Mark of the Lotus doesn't really improve your prospects that much either.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I was wondering whether there's a Bluegill and Enchanted Raven trade here. Keep the 5/2 alive, and then just keep pushing with the Runt and Patches, and then go for the hero power Mark of the Lotus next turn.
Well, I mean, if you're playing Bluegill instead of hero powering, you're giving away a Bluegill warrior instead of a Patches, right? Like, if you just hero power, you can trade 2/2, 1/1, and the hero power. As if you play the Bluegill, you're trading a 2/2 and a 2/1, which is just kind of worse for you. Not to mention, next turn, that Bluegill just fits in perfectly with the Mark of the Lotus anyway,
worst case scenario,
as a charging 3/2. So I would expect just to see a hero power turn, but my expectations are incorrect.
Is he just going to get him?
He's just going to get him, yeah.
Look at that. They just turned around. He's like, yeah, guys, did you see me go face? It's like, get him. And they're like, yeah, let's do this. Okay, well, they're basically just handing over all questions to Greece here and Deathlore. And let's have the Stonehill Defender, absolutely amazing card, but maybe too slow. There are 2 1-health minions that will die if they trade into it, but maybe the Aldor onto the Runt feels more reasonable here. Kill off the Enchanted Raven, and then even just the Aldor actually beats up a lot of this board on its own.
Yeah, once your aggro druid opponent has gone all in like this, the only way they're going to keep this kind of power going is with buffs. So you need to make the plays that are strongest against buff effects. And Stonehill Defender is 100% not the best play if your opponent has a buff. So Outdoor Peacekeeper definitely looks a bit more promising. Is there a Hydrologist play that gets you anywhere? I don't think so. No 1-mana secret really digs you out of this mess. So Outdoor and value trade definitely seems like the line. He's going to choose to trade out the Murloc instead of the Beast. There is, of course, a War Leader that can buff the Bluegill Warrior, but there's also Mark of Yasharaj that can get value out of the Beast.
Interesting choice. So there are a couple of options here. Eggnapper just to slam down, but Mark of the Lowest plus hero power probably does need to be considered to a certain extent. Hero power and the Runt kill off the Aldor. The Patches goes into 3-2, but then you're only left with a 3-3 on the board.
There's no value trades. That's the frustrating part. Normally when you get a big buff turn like this, you can actually value trade the board and, you know, almost get the zoo advantage of just being more efficient with your trades than your opponent's being able to. But right here, it's just the attack buff enabling just a few extra trades on the board, and your minions are still dying. But Eggnapper doesn't really look that promising either. I think it's probably the slightly better of 2 pretty weak-looking plays in this spot, though.
Yeah, already I think Hungary are going to just be on the base of, I hope we draw well in the next 2 turns because they definitely need it. If this board gets cleared up and they just draw like more buffs, Savage Draw, for example, they're in trouble actually because we're getting to the turns now where Paladin can really stabilize.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go for 1 trade with the Crawler. Let's just keep their options open in terms of just having more stuff than their opponent on the board. So Mark of Lotus is going to be much more reliable to try and get off. But imagine if that was just Consecrate this turn. That would just be a nightmare.
It wouldn't, I mean, yes, it would be really, really bad. But, you know, the 3-3 has to kind of trade into the 3-1 to make that happen. Or you consecrate first and then trade into a 1-1 afterwards, leave 3-2 against 1-1, which is slightly better. But it's not the end of the world for you. You still kind of have a turn of tempo to follow that up, as we see Stonehill Defender doing standard Stonehill Defender things.
Shield Bearer.
Yeah, classic Shield Bearer. But it would give you at least, if you drew you know, 1 more solid card this turn, got a good Mark of the Lotus turn off, you would still be in good shape, where then maybe a Finger draw or a Living Mana draw has to dig you out of this. And this is sometimes just how you have to be playing aggro druid. You just have to give yourself the best percentage chances and just hope that the right cards come off the top.
Call the Shield Bearer as well. It's going to go as defensive as possible versus the aggro druid. Enchanted Raven is going to fit in this turn with Mark of the Lowest and a hero power. Going to be as good as it's going to get, I think. The next turn, pretty much Living Mana all in, if available.
Yeah, Living Mana can definitely get you out of almost the stickiest of messes, but there's a question here. The buff is almost certainly happening. He can use the buff to value trade 4-2 into 1-4, or he can choose to trade first and get the extra buff essentially on the 1-1 tokens that come out, have multiple minions then that are contesting the 3-2. It looks like going to choose to buff first, which was my initial instinct, but then, you know, just the back of my mind caught the opportunity to buff the 1-1s, but I think this does end up being stronger in the long run.
Yeah, this kind of directs an attack. Well, if the clean kill is done on the Raven, you're actually presenting more damage with the Eggnapper anyway, even though you actually do more damage because the Raven's on 3 health as opposed to 1.
Sure.
So it kind of asks an awkward question of Greece and how they're going to deal with this. Now, True Silver Champion, though, helps. Or he could just slam down Kodo to kill off the Patches this turn.
I wonder.
I don't hate it. He can go Kodo into True Silver Hydrologist on the following turn, then have War Leader plus something to fill in 7, potentially buffing the Hydrologist, and then he has Drake on 8. That's the immediate way that I can see this hand curving out.
Yeah, even Kodo onto Patches and then trade the Aldor into the Raven means that, yeah, there's a 4-1, but then you're Hungary are probably going to hero power next turn, but if they have Living Mana, then suddenly that trade's kind of awkward.
Yes, and also, you know, you're leaving a 4-1 on the board isolated against a 3-5, and your opponent's hero power is already earmarked to go into this 0-1 Shield Bearer, so it can't trade up in that effect. This is definitely the play I like, looks solid, and that is not at all what Hungary need in this spot.
Do you have a Savage Roar to clear the board?
Is it getting any better? That's the question.
Probably not. Well, still pushes forward to face.
Yeah.
Savage Roar is probably just the I hope I draw something in the next few turns. Be interested to see how the rest of the Druid deck is actually built. Valfin, not going to get too much work done, although Valfin plus Hydrologist plus Hero Power plus Secret could set up a very, very nice War Leader turn.
No Noble Sacrifice, which I think would be the #1 pick for them here. They're not too concerned. Obviously, Noble Sac in general is terrible against Druid, because they can always just hero power it down. But in this position, when you have already reached this point against aggro Druid, they're not getting the board back unless they draw Living Mana. That's the one card that can get them the board state back. So you should be purely concerned with just protecting your health total. Anything you can do to gain an extra point of life or two over the course of the game should probably be your #1 priority.
Yeah, and Repentance being picked up there because we can pretty much tell from the way Hungary have been playing this game that they don't really care about trading. And so Redemption not going to get much work.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, but look at this. Exactly what I was talking about. Standard value play dictates that you true silver the 4-1 and then keep more health on your Kodo with the trade. But Deathlaw and Grease choosing to get hold of... God, I forgot about the Shell Shifter. The answer to the question of does Savage Roar get any better is a very emphatic yes when you are playing Shell Shifter in your deck.
So that's that combo of cards is 10 along with Hero Power from hand. So, I mean, just go face, right? Push for 2.
Does it ever make a difference? If you push 2 here, he's at 12. He swings for True Silver, he's back at 14. You have 10 with Savage Roar Hero Power, which means if you then draw Bluegill Warrior...
second Savage Roar.
Right. Then you are pushing an extra 4 damage that sets up lethal. I think face is, in fact, the place.
I think what's important is what difference does trading make?
It's a good question.
Very like, oh, okay, 3 damage when you're on 32 health. Sick. But yeah, I think you actually push face due to the outs it gives you. And also, trading at this point, Hungary have had multiple opportunities to try and trade the game and build it like that. They didn't, they've gone face. And I feel like when you commit something that strongly, you keep going. Because if you try and bail out, you actually just make the game worse for yourself a lot of the time.
It is just Bluegill Warrior, by the way. There would not be enough mana for double Savage Roar and a Hero Power next turn. So he would be 1 short. So it would be Bluegill Warrior, Savage Roar, Hero Power for exact 14 next turn. That is the only out from this position. Unless there are some other weird inclusions in this deck that I'm not accounting for.
Sure. Unless the True Silver goes into the 1-1.
I think based on the play last turn, with the extra life preservation of taking the 4 damage on the Kodo, there is no way we're going to see that happen from Grease.
Although what we might see happen is the War Leader into the Megasword to try and get taunt.
Yes.
Then that'll get taunt across 2 minions, and the 2/2 would be buffed, which means it would have to be pretty much killed beforehand in terms of the War Leader. He's not going to go free, he's actually going to put more minions on the board. The presumption that Swipe isn't a card, I imagine, in this deck. And only gets 3 health, Wind Fury, and Divine Shield.
Move quickly.
So if he takes Wind Fury, I can't count this too effectively because the options are in the way, but if he takes Wind Fury and pushes all the damage this turn, he then has War Leader for the next turn on a bunch of Wind Fury Murlocs.
22 damage.
That seems to be the thinking. So yeah, the swing goes to face. It is Bluegill Warrior or bust.
Already 1 been used.
We wait for these attacks to go through. That is the wrong Murloc, Hungary. You see the reaction. I think they knew exactly what was up as well. They were playing to that same out. And now, next turn, is the Wind Fury War Leader lethal from this position?
Well, I was going to say, for Hungary's sake, I think they actually consider just War Leader Hero Power face pass. You need to keep the Stealth minion, because you need that Savage Roar damage.
Agreed, yes.
And it gives you 1 more out. But we can see there's a Primordial Drake, which is going to lock out the game next turn one way or the other.
Yeah, so there would be, what? There's a 3, a 4, and a 3 next turn. So that is 6, 12, 20 damage just from the Murlocs. And then the 3 and the 5 going in as well. Yeah, it's 28 in total. So War Leader would just be lethal if no trades happen.
Megasaur, you brutal beast. You were not gentle in any way, aspect, or form.
It is kind of a misnomer, isn't it? Yeah. Gentle Megasaur. Although
he's gentle. It's the Murlocs he makes murderous.
He is a gentle, caring dinosaur who is selfless and gives over the power to other beings.
No, Lux at best. It looks like it is going to be the hero power onto the hydrologist to try and reduce some of this damage down. Which wouldn't matter anyway, because now the Savage Raw hero power does do it.
Yep.
So hero power in this turn, unless there's a another heal, another true silver or whatever comes down, wouldn't make much difference.
So now where are we? We have 6, 12, 19, 24 going in again, right? It's still lethal from this spot.
Yeah, so we
3-6 from the Vilefin, 9-12 from the token, and then 15, 20. Oh no, is he one off?
No, he can rock
He
pull,
can
right?
rock pull Hunter for 2 extra. So there'll be 4, 8, 11, 14, 17, 22. I think he's still one off.
Wow, that hydrologist knocking out 4 damage is pretty big. Well, it's actually more, right? Because the war leader buff.
Yep.
So it looks like, I mean, Primordial Drake still kind of locks this game out. A little bit frustrating that it kills a lot of his own board anyway.
Right.
And doesn't actually clear up the Shell Shifter, but I believe it's going to be the best / safest option here.
Yep, great sequencing here. 1 to face, puts the 1 into the War Leader to clear that out, finishes his other attack, sweep it out, and look at Like a Boss. We saw this, the wave from Like a Boss. At HCT, he threw that out when he was playing. Whenever he felt a game was locked out, he gave a little sarcastic wave goodbye to his opponent, and it appears that HGG is no different. Very confident man, a very expressive man. We'll be looking forward to seeing more of him as this tournament progresses.
Yeah, I think he's coming up next as well for Greece, as far as I can recall. So, yeah, good win there for Deathlaw. The aggro druid just not getting it done, and I can see from the corner of my eye that Like a Boss is not coming up.
According to what I wrote down, it's Logan. So we will
is he third? Am I just making things up?
I don't know. I didn't get that far. They went through the class selection so quickly, I didn't get a chance to make full notes.
I'm just lying. He's just fault. I was wrong. The only further wrong I could be is if he just wasn't on the sheet for some reason. He's just hanging out with the Greek guys. But yeah, it's going to be Logan coming up next to try and give Greece a 2-0 lead over Hungary. He's going to go up against Exegil. And it is going to be Rogue versus Shaman. And yeah, the Hunter has a potential choice for Logan, but I believe if you're probably going to be pretty confident in the Rogue Mirror, regardless, because it's either a mirror or against Miracle. A lot of the time you can just kill them if you're against Miracle anyway. So probably just the most confident pick overall, is Hunter can actually struggle quite a little bit versus Shaman a lot of the time anyway, because of that high AoE power that they actually have.
Yeah, and we've seen Hunter, in general, I don't think Hunter is one of the most powerful classes. Don't get me wrong, it's a lot better position than it was in the previous metagame. You can play it and actually hit Legend, which, Zalay, who was one of the most strongest players in the world, proved how much of a struggle even that was
Didn't he try Reno, though?
In the previous metagame. He tried about 15 different Hunter decks, and just none of them were putting up good numbers. But this is a very playable deck and very strong in certain matchups, but although it's not right up the top of the tier list in the current metagame, we're seeing it's quite a crucial class to position correctly in your lineup in this tournament, because that Hunter can really put the fear into your opponents as to be picking classes like Rogue against it, which means sometimes just by having Hunter in the right spot, you can get through a whole series without even having to come up against Quest Rogue, which is a huge plus for you.
Yeah, and Hexago as well, his opponent, we've actually met. We were with him in Croatia at the start of this year. He was one of the players who qualified as well. So he actually performed, I think he performed the best out of the qualifiers against the G2 plus JJ team that was presented as the the pro players.
Yes.
And I think Exco actually got the furthest. Very quiet-spoken guy. I remember interviewing him in one of his victories and was like, hey, how do you think, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, it was okay. Yeah. It's like, okay, moving on. But very, very good at the game. As you said, we reached Legend more than 30 times. Finished Rank 1 Legend in Europe for June 2016.
Yeah, very, very impressive player, but the hits keep on coming for Greece. As we mentioned, there are just an entire roster of very, very powerful players, and Logan is no different. Logan, we've mentioned that Like a Boss is a pretty confident guy. He likes giving it the big one on occasion, but I think Logan was the member of the Greek team that was tweeting out, I think, to Rob Wing that he should be backing Greece, because that was the easiest money he would ever make when Rob was trying to decide who he wanted to pick for his prediction, just like I picked Russia. Raven picked the vanquished South Korea from yesterday.
Yeah, some of us didn't go for all the easy picks, unfortunately. But yeah, you know, Logan, a very confident player. We'll see if he can back it up, though, because that's the trick. I love someone who wants to throw a bit of smack talk around, be very confident, but you have to back it up, and he's going to have to do it against Exigo, who I believe on the team is actually one of the more proficient players, and in terms of the competitive background.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's back to Logan. You know, there's nothing wrong with confidence if it's an accurate reflection of how good you are. There's nothing wrong with knowing how good you are. It's when you have an inflated opinion of how good you are that you start.
So why have you got loads of confidence, Saul?
There you go.
Key question. Your refusal to answer just sounds like I'm right.
Well, it was just such a clear and obvious setup that I was wondering if you were going to take.
Oh, okay. Well, we are going to be moving into this game. It's going to be Quest Rogue. I believe Logan played this last week, I think, as well. So probably going to be a fairly standard build. And Hungary going with the Shaman, but with a good old 4-mana 7/7, or as its actual name is Flame Wreathed Faceless in hand, combined with a Manatide Totem. Not a combo we see too often.
It is. It's a mishmash of cards for sure, but the Shaman metagame has changed enormously, perhaps more than any other class in the game. Shaman have had to react to the standard rotation through the fact that, you know, Totem Golem, Tunnel Trog, all these core cards have kind of bitten the dust. But from the Rogue side, yet again, opening hand Shadow Step against an aggressive deck that is trying to kill you. And I believe last time it was the aggressive Shaman again that was trying to overcome the aggro. The Quest Rogue should have a good time of it in theory, but when those Shadow Steps get drawn, rules can go out the window.
100%, especially because there's a follow-up Novice Engineer, which is really nice to help with Cycle and actually just keep the juice going. But Novice Engineer is normally the card you actually want to bounce. You want to bounce a card that has an effect, even though it's slightly more difficult because of the increased mana cost versus Swashbuckler, so it doesn't line up as well, but it is one of the better cards to bounce, as opposed to, say, the Charge Minions.
Yeah, early on, conventional wisdom would have 100% agreed with you, but now players are really starting to wonder about quality of the minion that you bounce versus speed of getting the quest completed.
Sure.
Because yes, Novice Shadow Step, you still get a 0-mana Novice. Your second activation is free. Once you start getting the Brewmasters and Ferryman involved, though, doing it on a 1-mana minion can sometimes get you the quest completed an entire turn faster than doing it with a 2-mana minion. So yes, Novice is fantastic in terms of resources, but the minion you choose is actually a very often reaction to the type of matchup you're playing. Against a slow deck, Novice, sure, grade A minion to do because it makes sure you're high on resources all the time. Now that he's seen Bloodsail Corsair come out from the Shaman, Logan and Grease will understand they don't have all the time in the world, so we might see him go off with a faster minion like the Swashbuckler instead. The downside, as I finish this incredible run-on sentence, of doing it with Swashbuckler, however, is something that I talked about in the previous matchup, which is you pull patches from your deck as a 1/1 instead of a 5/5 as you could later if you do it after the quest.
Yeah, definitely a lot to consider in a deck that has pretty much been panned as the easy deck to play, at least at an entry level, as the Quest Rogue. You know, like what it does is reasonably straightforward. You have a direct tactic of bounce something a lot of times, then suddenly 5/5s. But you know, at this point there are further intricacies that make the deck a little bit more difficult to play if you're playing at a very high level against high level players.
It's an incredibly hard deck to play optimally. I mean, let's put that out there straight away. I think the issue with the deck, if there is one, is that, you know, once you reach 70% proficiency with the deck, how much does your win rate actually improve between being 70% proficient and 100% proficient compared to how much your win rate improves if you draw Shadow Steps?
Going to be that proficient with the deck that you do draw those Shadow Steps, and we can already see the decision that is being made by Logan and Team Grease that Shadow Step is going to hit the Swashbuckler, as you said, the cheaper minion to mess around with when it comes to bouncing. No other bounce effects live, though, currently in hand, but with Cold Light Oracle and the Mimic Pod, there is a huge opportunity to draw into them very, very quickly indeed.
Yeah, Cold Light Oracle is a very, very scary card to play against an aggro deck, though, because you're often, when you've got a good start against aggro, you're quite often able to get the board back quick enough. But the problem is how much damage gets pushed through before that. So quite often, if your start as the Quest Rogue is strong enough, the aggro deck is then on a dream of just drawing enough straight burn damage. So Cold Light Oracle is just going to help them do that. What is going to help some defensive options from Grease is that their first Swashbuckler card is a nice, juicy Golden Earth Elemental, which at least for now is a 7/8.
Yeah, will be a 5-5 later on if it's going to come to that, but probably not even going to be played if it gets that late in the game. As a 5-mana, 5-5 taunt. Not what you want to do with this deck in general, and that was Logan just gave us a heart. I'm choosing to believe it was to us. But yeah, that was kind of scary coming from Logan, to be honest, but thanks, friend.
All smiles for now, but there is a 7-7 hitting the board. Let's see if he's still smiling after that. And just a little flicker of concern now hitting the face for Logan representing Greece. And Hungary establishing themselves as the aggressor, but still, this is the fear that Quest Rogue puts into you. How can I leave that Novice there when they have so many bounce effects in their deck that can just recycle that Novice over and over?
Yeah, now very easy Swashbuckler into Brewmaster if Logan really wants to. Still has 2 mana spare as well. And to be honest, I think he needs to hurry up now that there's the Flame Wreath Faceless on the board. The deck doesn't really play anything to deal with this minion a lot of the time until you have the quest filled. So Halazeal not great. Hex would have been truly glorious for Logan there, but not meant to be.
It would, yeah. Halazeal particularly dead these days because as time's gone on, more and more players are cutting Backstab, Fan of Knives, these kind of cards that could at least get you a tiny bit of value out of Halazeal. They're just all in on putting as many quality minions to bounce as they can in their deck, and there just aren't room for those anti-aggro cards these days.
It's going to be the Brewmaster. I imagine we are not going to see it played again this turn. Dagger up. Logan's like, okay, hit me in the face for 7. It's a 2 out of 4 currently for the Rogue quest.
Time to get you.
Yeah, this could kind of spiral out of control, to be honest. If the Earth Elemental comes down next turn, then there's still a lot of burn available and a 7-7 on the board for Exego. And also, if the Earth Elemental comes down, it dramatically cuts into what's available to do for Greece in the following turn as well.
Yes, it does. It's not a bad turn to push that Overload onto, though, because if a 2-mana bouncer is drawn again, they will Earth Elemental on 5, Overload for 3, have 3 mana on 6, so they can go Swashbuckler Bounce on 6. That'll be 3 out of 4, and then on 7, they'll have the 4th Swashbuckler and enough mana to play the quest. So
or even if not, they can Mimic Pod as well.
Right, exactly.
Job's done.
Trading into the 3-2 just to respect the possibility of Eviscerate, which I was just about to say is another one of those cards that a lot of people are cutting out, but Greece do still have it packed in there, so rewarded for the decision to respect the 3-2 minion on board. And also just the choice of, anytime your rogue opponent is getting up towards 2 or 3 activations on their quest, you feel like you want to clear their board because just in case anything absolutely nasty happens and that 3-2 becomes a 5-5.
Yeah, prep can be pretty scary to just bring the quest out of nowhere. 1-1's going to be cleared up there. Still 4 mana available now for Exego. Just a little bit off though. Is there there's just Thanos. Would you just Thanos Lightning Bolt? And then, do you want to take the face damage?
That's scary, right? Look at the break point that it sets up. You take 7 damage, you put yourself in 20, and Rogue is only interested in counting in multiples of 5.
But you don't want to throw away the flame.
You absolutely don't.
So
no.
I think you actually have to take it this turn.
Sure.
Your opponent's still 2 marks off the quest. They're overloaded for 3 next turn. With this Jade Lightning as well, you might just have the damage to finish the game before the quest is even complete.
It's fair.
With a second dead cantrip as well. 6 damage next turn.
Yeah, pushes another 7 this turn, so this has to be an absolutely miraculous hand from Greece to be able to punish you for doing this. The quest needs to be completed, the quest needs to be activated, the 7-7 needs to be stopped because there is lethal set up from hand, and they need to do all of that with the princely sum of 3 mana, and all the preps in the world probably aren't going to get you out of this.
No, definitely not. Really just kind of, the Earth Elemental got some work done there and soaked up a lot of damage, but Halazeal just dead. Like, any Shaman spell would have been better at this point, so looks like Logan might be falling here with this Quest Rogue.
Yeah, not looking great. This time, the supposed counter of the very aggressive decks, the most aggressive decks in the format, do tend to be the ones that supposedly give Quest Rogue the most problems. In this case, they did get there even through an opening hand Shadow Step as well.
Yeah, sorry, just look at Kalimos is live this turn because of the Earth Elemental that was played last turn. Tickles me.
Yeah. There's almost certainly Fireflies in the deck, right? So if the game were to drag out, there is a decent chance he could have got that thing to heal for 12, but no such luck. The game is not going to drag out. Hungary are going to square up the series with the Jade Lightning. Logan throws the eyes to the sky, and it's not going to be a sweep for Hungary. Greece, the favorites to my mind in this series, are pegged back to 1 game apiece, and we are going to move on to game 3 very rapidly. And it's going to be X-Air now coming up for Hungary.
Yeah, Exego looking pretty confident there and piling away that win. So pretty good for him taking down Logan, as he said, evening it up. And all to play for so far.
Yeah, I do enjoy watching Quest Rogue lose. It makes me happy. It gives me a wonderful
feel
feeling.
warm inside.
It does. But yeah, I mean, that is supposed to be the decks that beat up on Quest Rogue, right? Your Hunters, your Pirate Warriors, your Aggro Shamans. That's supposed to be the big stopping point for the Quest Rogue. But we saw it happen once already where Shadow Step changed that dynamic and just made the quest happen too quickly. I was hoping it wasn't going to happen again. It wasn't. Raven, you've just given out a little chuckle. What have you seen on our screen in front of us that has amused you so?
Okay, so it's going to be Cebu versus X-Air, and on the in the taxi on the way to the studio today, you were discussing matchups, and we're like, do you think we're going to see a Taunt Warrior mirror today? And I said, you know what, the way it's been going, probably. And we're like, oh, well, you know, we might not. And this, I don't know that they're both Taunt Warriors, but I've also got a funny feeling inside, except mine isn't warm and fuzzy. It's cold and grim. And so it could be double Taunt Warrior from these guys. And this matchup, I feel, is the most linear of matchups. We're probably going to cast in terms of whoever completes the quest first pretty much just wins. I even played a decent amount of games this morning to try and prove this fact, and a 100% win rate for whoever hit the quest first.
What you heard there was Raven searching his mental thesaurus for a word that was still in keeping with his positive attitude. Came up with the word linear.
Yes, well, it's as good as it's going to get. Anyway, it could still be Pirate. It could be something else, Warrior, mid-range, maybe.
Let's actually look at the possible lineup. So it was Mage or Warrior from the Greek side. It was Warlock or Warrior from X-Air's side for Hungary. So is there any clue in that lineup as to whether this would be Pirates or Taunt that we're looking at?
Well, with Warrior or Mage, Warrior or Warlock as a potential opponent, if it was Freeze Mage was the choice, I think I would have gone with Mage. If it's Mage versus Zoo, you're feeling great. If it's Mage versus a Control Warrior, I think it's a fine matchup.
Yeah.
Versus the Mirror.
There would be a fear of Pirate Warrior in that spot, but no!
Never mind.
You know you're in a bad spot when you are hoping against hope that one of the Warriors is at least playing Pirate Warrior. It's not. It is good old-fashioned Quest Warrior Showdown. Both, of course, with the quest in the opening hand, as everyone gets the option to start with. Greece have the faster curve, but one of their taunt minions is a Dirty Rat, which can be a key card in this matchup. It's one of the few actually real interesting decision points that comes out in this matchup, because you can time a Dirty Rat very nicely, because pulling a taunt minion out of your opponent's hand means that they don't proc the quest. So it's quite often you get in a situation your opponent only has 2 cards in hand, 3 cards in hand. They're on 6 out of 7 taunt minions played. You can Dirty Rat to disrupt that last taunt minion and delay their quest activation.
You know how I time Dirty Rat? On 2.
Of course you do.
Dirty Rat on curve. You have 1, they have none at that point, so I'll be feeling pretty good about that. And with a follow-up for Bloodtooth Brave, I honestly believe that if you just spam out taunts fast enough, like for that, this is Dream World, but if Primordial Drake is mulliganed away and then Stonehill gets drawn, just do it. Just drop the Dirty Rat on 2. You're feeling good about life.
Everyone in chat, or no one in chat, will be surprised to learn that Raven is a turn 2 Dirty Rat player.
In this matchup, actually no, in every, if I'm playing Taunt Warrior, I'm just dropping it on 2. You gotta get that Sulfuris equipped. Gotta see the, I would say a gentleman's nod. Both players play the quest, but it's more like a, I don't know, some kind of thief, some kind of bandit agreement of just saying, let's play the quest first.
Yeah, there is nothing gentlemanly about Quest Warrior. This is just honor between thieves. The quest being played on turn 1 for each player. If there is a gentleman deck in the meta right now, it is clearly mid-range Paladin. That is a deck for fine, upstanding gentlemen.
On fine outstanding Murloc, Sir Finley, even though not in the rotation, is a gentleman Murloc who would no doubt approve of Murlocs being played in Paladin.
Still, neither team actually off to an explosive start here. We've mentioned that this, Quest Warrior at the best of times, a little bit linear, to use the word that you did, but in the mirror in particular, Sulfuris first is pretty much always GG. As long as you know the patterns of what you're trying to do in the turns leading up to and after that, when to time your brawl, all that kind of stuff, then getting the first player, being the first team to activate Sulfuras will be a huge advantage. But Raven, you are giggling like a madman to my right-hand side right now. Do I take it that you strongly advocate the playing of a dirty rat this turn?
So, completely blank anything we see in the Grease's hand, right?
Of course, yeah.
So, dirty round 2. Worst case, big taunt comes out. Let's pretend it's an Ali Armorsmith. Well, worst case, you have Whirlwind Execute to kill anything that comes out. Or you just ignore it, rock Stonehill Defender, then Stonehill Defender, either draw a Bloodhoof or get one from Discover, and then you just curve out. Suddenly, you're 2 to 3 taunts in, and they've played probably not by the time you can hit 2 or 3. That is a really good jump. For me, honestly, I would have just slammed Dirty Ram, I'm not even joking. This is not even a joke. Genuinely, it's correct play, guys.
I've never heard Raven this adamant about a play.
Not even a Hunter play.
No, exactly.
This is Taunt Warrior play. I would have slammed that Dirty Rat easy. Because honestly, the results I've seen, not joking around, but how many times have we seen the warrior who wins gets the quest first wins?
100% of the time.
Right, there you go. Dirty round 2.
How? What?
It's the taunt curve.
There is a slight disconnect between those two statements.
Taunt
but yeah,
curve.
it would have worked out very, very well in this situation because there is Ali Armorsmith and nothing else in hand. Ali Armorsmith isn't actually a big punish. It's unpleasant, but it's not, you know, a huge 5-5 or 3-6, which can actually put a rush on you once it breaks through your Dirty Rat.
And the armor gain is actually quite insignificant in this matchup as well, because the Ragnaros hero power just beats you.
Right.
It doesn't really matter even how much health you've got, because it either gains board control or health pressure one way or the other. Let's see the options here. Now we can double Dirty round 4, I'm just saying.
Raven, I hate you so much.
It's a sweet curve.
I actually would take the Dirty Rat, not because I'm necessarily
Would you play them
slamming
both on 4?
Not because I'm necessarily slamming them, but they are useful cards just to exhaust resources from your opponent. Because like I said, in this matchup, ratting to pull a Taunt Minion out the hand and onto the board is actually a resource gone, because bodies on the board are irrelevant in this matchup. The only thing that matters is that number that's underneath that exclamation mark above your head.
Well, pulling a taunt out is going to be great for resources. Doing it twice in one turn, even better, as far as I'm concerned.
Please be quiet, Raven.
Well, honestly, the benefits of the Dirty Rats, and none of the minions that you're going to pull, trade into them. Right? So it's not like you suddenly take 8 damage if you double Dirty Rat, right?
I agree.
They're not going to die unless there's trade, sleep. And then you're like, well, okay, well, there's his turn. He's still not developing a taunt minion if he's doing sleep with the fishes and trades.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so the merits of early Dirty Rats, you can pull Stonehill Defender out of your opponent's hand, which is a huge upside as well. Once this turn passes, they will see that there is no Stonehill Defender. Acolyte of Pain is a good pickup, though, but... All right, Lycabos is a big fan of that Acolyte draw. A big fan of that Acolyte draw, it looks like. He is an extremely happy man. But yeah, the Rats, like, in the real world, if we're being results-oriented, would have been fantastic this game, because there is one Ali Armorsmith and nothing else in terms of taunts on board. So if you'd pulled the Armorsmith out, your opponent would just be running dry for potentially 2, 3, maybe even 4 turns. Meanwhile, you would just be ramping up your quest and getting there. The difference is that there are a lot of other draws where they have several taunt minions in hand, and that the Dirty Rat does just give them a free early minion, and it doesn't ever really disrupt their curve. They still have the right number of taunt minions to be able to continue to play 1 a turn.
Yes, rat him. Okay, well, we've got an easy execute target here. Again, the armor completely insignificant.
Yep.
The Acolyte is going to get a nice trade, though. But again, this rat's probably just hanging around for a while at this point. Bloodhoof Brave, exactly what Greece needed to just get something on the board here.
Yeah, still have a draw off the Acolyte here. Potentially can get as many as 3 in this spot, although I'm sure Hungary, if the Bloodhoof Brave is dropped, will trade the Stonehill Defender off the board. It does have the downside of enraging the Bloodhoof Brave, but I think that's less of a risk to you than leaving the 1-2 around to continue to trade your Acolyte into, because this is a downside of this deck that I've never really heard anyone talk about. But, like,
everything's got taunt.
Everything has taunt, which means essentially nothing has taunt. And you really don't get to play any combat tricks. You don't get to force trades in particular places. Your minions just your opponents always have free choice of which of your minions they want to trade into. As Greece attempts to Acolyte face that turn.
We got sweet 1 damage.
I love Greece. They're fun.
Greece, they are honestly, out of all the players I've hung out with in terms of like nationality groups, Greece is up there with maybe the Russians for how crazy they are on a night out.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
5 drop on 5, Revan?
5 drop on 5 soul.
All right, let's do it.
Double 3 drop on 6. Just double shield block into Curator and Sargoth. Why not? Let's just make it 7, 8, 9.
Just considering what they want to do with these attacks, this is the dilemma I talked about the previous turn. Enraging the Bloodhoof Brave is pretty miserable because the 5/5 then just pretty much runs over your 2/6 Dirty Rat. Even the 3/6 Hatchling that you're playing as well just picks up an incredible value trade if you enrage the Bloodhoof. But is drawing extra cards off the Acolyte really any better than that?
I actually think passing is better here. You need to kind of buy a stall turn anyway with the shield blocks next turn. So I think if you pass, you let them draw 3 cards total, but you have, you actually form some semblance of board to like skip a turn to double shield block, potentially based off the draw.
I don't like it. Think about the potential reads though. You've seen your opponent no early development, no Stonehill Defender on 3. You pulled an Ali Armorsmith out of the far left of their hand, and then they played a top-decked Bloodhoof Brave. There is a very good chance, based on those reads that you can put together, that the hand is just very dry right now on taunts that they can play. So giving extra gas from the Acolyte Pain is very scary to me. But I do totally take your point in that they would lose the board in spectacular fashion here, even just to things like Ravaging Ghoul and Whirlwind in this case, to do that extra 1 damage to the 6 health minions.
Yeah, I believe losing the board with nothing to play next turn, right, is the key issue. We were, talking about the board doesn't matter. Of course, in some respect, it does, in which if you never play a minion and they play minions, you probably lose, right? And that's to the same extent where if you skip a turn and they get to pressure you on that 1 turn, suddenly the mass of the quest actually changes based on how many Ragnaros hits you get. I spotted Dirty Rat.
Don't say it. 3 taunts been played from Hungary at this point and only 4 cards in hand.
You Dirty Rat, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right, okay. I thought you don't say Dirty Rat. Well, I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure you do with Coin, Slam, Execute.
No, I'm just sick of hearing you say Dirty Rat, basically.
Dirty Rat.
There you go. Gonna go with the Slam, lead out, of course, drawing first, just correct sequencing in this position. Primordial Drake being picked up, so they do now have some gas in the form of a couple of taunts. And looks like they are gonna hold back on the Dirty Rat in this spot and go with the shield block instead. They do have the Brawl in hand, so Dirty Rat in combination with Brawl is a play that's available to them. And as they started to draw and pick up those extra taunts in this position, that gave them the security of saying, okay, you know what, we're maybe not that far behind in the taunt count anymore. We do have a couple of plays coming up. We don't need to rush out this Dirty Rat anymore.
And they have the built-in almost like wave clear style move before the Sulfuris comes out with the Dirty Rat Brawl as well, which is a common tactic we actually see for Control Warriors.
Yeah, it's something that I mentioned at the start as well. I said that rushing to Sulfuris, getting there first is huge, as long as you kind of know the patterns that you go down when you get there. And a Brawl on the turn before you finish or the turn directly after is one of those things that you really need to look out for.
Yeah, because then it becomes, we were joking about who gets their first wins. It becomes almost impossible if there's that follow-up or preemptive strike in terms of setting up the Sulfuris.
Yep.
Imagine we're going to start off with a shield block. Oh, play the next shield block.
We in fact did.
Yeah, we did it. Hey, hindsight. I mean, yeah, Execute just feels too slow.
Yes.
Especially when you can just do whatever next turn. If the trade happens, there's Ghoul, Whirlwind to finish off the Bloodhoof Brave as well. So, are you a fan of these the shield blocks, shield slam lists? Do you think they're good enough?
I think in Freeze Mage World, probably yes. I think your
shield slam the Doomsayer.
Yeah, I mean, Shield Slam is just a sensible card to have in your deck when you're playing 2 shield blocks. It's just most of the lists that I've seen are only playing 1, and it's just kind of that afterthought, right? Where the chain of action is that okay, there's a lot of Freeze Mage around. Suddenly, I want to potentially play Armorsmiths and/or Shield Block in my deck. If that's the case, suddenly Shield Slam just becomes a much better card, and it just goes in there as well. Don't.
I mean, we can play Bloodhoof as well here. We can even Dirty Rat trade Execute.
They can. They're going to get bad news, though. They will want to be pulling a Taunt minion with this next Dirty Rat, and they're not going to in the current situation. That Ravaging Ghoul, not what they're looking for. But still, this is the game plan now. You saw Lagabals's reaction to that as well. Not happy that the second minion was not a Taunt as well. They're really just starting to try and turn the tables here. Since they started this turn behind on the quest, they're trying to limit their opponent's quest activations by summoning their minions for them and not having them play them, which is the key distinction in a lot of interactions that you have to look out for in Hearthstone.
Yep, definitely. And again, like Priest being one of the Priest quests is actually summon and not
Correct.
play.
Yes.
So you can get all kinds of crazy tricks to do with that one. And that is no minions available for Xair here and Team Hungary. This is definitely a tough one. There is a trade, Sleep with the Fishes, to kill off one of these. You don't need to execute the other Dirty Rat, but do you even need to really Sleep with the Fishes here? It's 4 damage. Like,
You're at 42. I mean, there's some merit in trying to protect that armor for as long as you can because you have the shield slam, and now your 2 shield blocks are gone. That armor is only likely to be going down rather than up
Yep.
since you're behind on the board. So trading away a lot of this board or Sleep with the Fishes to take away a lot of this board can allow you to still maybe, you know, have 8 to 10 armor when a bigger minion comes down in the future, like Primordial Drake. But it's a very low value Sleep with the Fishes. I will definitely give you that.
I think because I think for one turn, you can just trade into the 5-1 here. You take 4, so you're on 8 armor. You can hero power up to 10, so even if you take a bit more damage somehow, which I'm pretty sure you just can't, unless there's random War Axe phase.
Yeah.
Like, you have the armor to kill something next turn.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to go for it, though. Okay. I suppose you've got to weigh up the value you're going to get from Sleep with the Fishes. Even later on, it's actually quite hard once Sulfuris comes out. Don't really care about minions other than making your opponent try and hit one with Sulfuris anyway.
Quick conference here between the Greek team. Deathlore in the background nods in confirmation, so it looks like they've reached a consensus. Looks like a fairly straightforward turn to me. Looks like Shield Block will lead out and then Bloodhoof Brave will just be dropped, but they may just be considering the option to coin the Primordial Drake. But once you've seen 2 Shield Blocks, you probably know there is a Shield Slam in the deck, so I'd be looking myself to just run down that armor a little bit before I drop the bigger taunts to the board, and having Bloodhoof Brave on the board next turn when you drop Primordial Drake is a huge upside because you get to enrage and push a lot of damage with the enraged Bloodhoof.
Also as well, holding on to the coin can make Sulfuris turns that bit easier. A lot of the time there's a Sulfuris turn where you float 1 mana and can't hero power in the same turn as equipping it, whereas holding on to the coin just makes that a little bit less likely to happen here. So he's going to go for the Bloodhoof and the Shield Block. Seems like a very straightforward play there. You see the whole team's discussing it though, and this draw is going to be huge, and it was not.
Can't believe it. Like, Greece have actually really swung this around. Hungary got off to, I think, a 3-1 lead on the taunt count, and now Greece have swung it all the way around to, I believe, now 4-3, if I'm keeping count. Note that Dirty Rat pulling out the last taunt in hand has meant Hungary has run completely dry from this point, and that's exactly what I was talking about at the start. The reason Greece have swung this game around is just really key Dirty Rat timings. They've put them down at a very, very awkward time where they've created a complete lack of resources in hand for Hungary.
Yeah, really strong. I mean, you know, Hungary skipped on the double Dirty Rat turn 4 turn potential, and this is what they get, basically. I couldn't even give a straight face for that one. Yeah, Curator being picked up now for Greece, so...
Only 1 draw, though, unless there is the Deathwing in the deck that we saw a little bit in week 1, but has faded away since they've already drawn the 2 Primordial Drake Dragons.
Yeah, I guess you can hang on here for Curator. It is odd that if you play 2 and a Deathwing, you're right. You do get the Hatchling, though, which would be nice to follow up, but not really needed at the moment.
Yeah, I just like Drake and start pushing, honestly. Push 7 this turn, have another 4-8 on board.
Yeah, make your opponent need to hero power and shield slam to kill off the Drake anyway, and if so, well, guess what? The 5-5 is still knocking on the... Sorry, the 5-4 it'll be. The Bloodhoof Brave is still knocking on your door as well, so... Yep, I think the Drake's pretty straightforward. You can just wait with the Curator at this point. Maybe get a stronger turn later.
I'm going to go Curator here.
Let's see what they draw. Let's, you know, until we see the draw, I don't know how it's going to work out. So there's the... it was just the Hatchling.
Yep, as expected.
Maybe saving the Drakes for Executes.
Possibly.
And they have Execute Sleep with the Fishes in hand.
It's true.
Suddenly that becomes, you know, 10 mana either kill a minion and play a Drake, or 10 mana deal 3 to... Well, sorry, deal 5 to the board and play a Drake.
Yeah, up to 5 now with their taunt count, a long way ahead now. They've forced themselves. Acolyte of Pain is a decent draw to go alongside the Ravaging Ghoul, but they would rather just be picking up the taunt minions directly now because they're not going to have enough mana to play a relevant-sized taunt at this point. They are just slipping out of range in this matchup, and as we've mentioned, when it's Sulfurous versus no Sulfurous, Die Insect versus no Die Insect, you can come back from the kind of position that we saw Greece in, where they're a long way behind on the counter. Once they actually get there, and then they have that hero power and you don't, very little way back.
Yeah, we see the Whirlwind potentially being played here first. It opens up more options if you draw a taunt like the Dion actually. Oh, Ali Armorsmith.
Very nice.
On 5, so no surprise to see the Whirlwind first, just as that safety measure. You're probably just trying to draw as much as possible from this Acolyte, and it looks like they're even considering just maximizing the draws and building into a stronger turn next turn. Dion and Matriarch, okay. Double 5-drops now for next turn as well. Means that, yep, no surprise either to use the Shield Slam, because next turn will be the 2 5-mana taunts coming out.
Yes. But that, I believe, will only be 4 and 5 for Hungary, so that only puts them back on parity with Greece now, who have another entire turn to develop taunts. No cheap taunts in hand for Greece themselves, so they will only be able to push themselves up to 6, but it still means that Hungary are lagging behind, even with the ability to play 2 taunts next turn.
It's going to be a tough one, even though, you know, that was a reasonable turn, finally drawing into more taunts. Just too far. I mean, also just look at the hand size difference here. There's still easy answers: Brawl, Execute, Sleep with the Fishes, now Shield Slam. Even though the armor isn't that high, it's actually just high enough, to be honest.
What now?
Considering all the lines again, definitely one of the more talkative, more animated teams that we've seen, but no great surprise. As we said, we've both been able to hang out in person with both Lycabas and Deathlore, and they are both very, very energetic, animated people, so no surprise that this team has a lot to say in these situations. But it is now going to be Primordial Drake. Shield Slam was used. They've dodged the Shield Slam on one of the largest minions in their deck, but now the Brawl pickup from Hungary does mean they have to slow down on these Ali Armorsmiths and Dahon Matriarchs, but if the trade hadn't happened, it might have been one of the highest value brawls they're going to get. Since the trade did happen, probably just double 5-drop turn now.
I wonder, actually. I was wondering whether it's War Axe into Drake, Execute, and then play the Ali Armorsmith to actually go up against Courier.
2-7 contesting 4-8. Is that really a world we want to live in?
No, 2-7.
Oh, you execute the 4-8. Yeah, 2-7
sorry,
against the 4-2 makes a lot more sense. Yeah, right.
Yeah, just because it's still not fantastic, but this Drake kind of needs to die at some point because you're so far away from the Ragnar's hero power.
Right. I mean, from the other side, you can just play the 2 5-drops this turn. There's a good chance that the 4-8 just goes into one of them anyway, and then you just execute it next turn when you have more mana available. That's the other perspective on it. I can kind of see it from both sides, but I really feel like Hungary just need to start getting this done right now, because otherwise they're just going to be forced out of the game.
So going for the Matriarch. Doing it kind of the other way, just using the War Axe to actually play off the Curator because it's low enough, and then just sitting the Matriarch in range. Essentially in range of their own Drake as well if they draw into one, if there's a direct trade.
That's fair. Yeah, setting up a Primordial Drake turn of their own.
Ooh.
Now, Stonehill Defender means that they can get this done very cheaply this turn, as opposed to with the expensive taunts that they had in hand.
Get that Public Defender on the go.
I think Stonehill Defender itself is just number 7 for Greece, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh,
think
sorry,
so.
I thought they were on 5. My apologies. Still pick the Public Defender, why not? 0-7. Gold Shine Footman. I'm revealing plans of my sick deck list I'm going to build.
You are indeed, yeah, there you go. Number 7 being activated, Stonehill Defender. We will wait the 73 seconds while the quest animation happens before we get to pick our Stonehill Defender card, and they're apparently invisible.
Yep. We'll see what they pick in a minute. We unfortunately do not have...
No, not even on my preview screen. I don't even have the options on my spectator screen that I can tell you about. But Diehorn Matriarch being picked up.
Yeah, Diehorn Matriarch, a great value card as well, because once you have that hero power, it's really nice to just be able to keep chugging out more minions. Okay, got some Furious this turn. Shield Slam trade. Cash in that hero power. Did he fit it in?
Should be fine. They look calm about it.
Nice.
It's not really a big effort. You can queue it up fairly easily just by mashing the button while the other animations are going on. Stonehill Defender now picked up. That would be a card they would have been longing for the last couple of turns. But now the public defender would actually be a quest completion this turn. That plus Armor Smith plus the 2-mana taunt would finish the quest and push them all the way up to 7. But the time has potentially already passed.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one indeed, mainly because there is an execute in hand, means even a Tar Lord this turn, which does survive the hero power if hit, isn't going to be enough because there's still minions on board. Yeah, P. Diddy wasn't a pick, so public defender. Wasn't a pick to be able to prop the quest here, so looks like Exa and Team Hungary are going to be in some trouble. And you can already, that one turn with the Sulfuris, you see how brutal it is.
Yep.
Just suddenly they're on 22. It's like, oh, hang on, you know, we were playing a gentleman's game of not hitting each other for most of the game.
Yep.
Suddenly they're on 22. There's still minions on board. There's a 4-attack minion, 4-attack weapon in hand, and a hero power again this turn to press. It's kind of crazy. The 1/4 can just go into the Tar Lord. Execute goes down. Drake clears up the Stonehill from Hungary's side, and then press that hero power and develop a Daihon.
Yep, just forcing through.
It's insane. It's insane.
Forcing through an absolute ton of damage this turn.
And you can see very quickly why there's very little chance of coming back when you're in this situation, when someone just beats you by 1 turn. Even if that previous turn, Exa had hero power, like unlock Sulfuris. That's 3 mana for the weapon. What does nothing to this board? Oh, sorry, kills the Stonehill. Great. And then hero power kills the Drake. Then there's no Tar Lord on board. There's just a Stonehill. Then the Ragnaros weapon kills the Stonehill on this side. Hero power again, develop a minion.
Yep.
So already that one swing turn of getting it just that turn before your opponent has such a huge impact. Never mind the situation Hungary are in where they don't even have their own hero power live yet.
Yeah, but Hungary don't even have the luxury of only being 1 turn behind.
That's what I mean. And that's what I mean. They're just ages away at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just going to be a futile attempt to scramble back to victory here for Hungary.
What do you make of this play of the hero power before the trade with the Stonehill? I mean, they've held execute, but because they had sleep with the fishes, I guess. But it doesn't matter in the long run, don't get us wrong. But to me, it just seemed a very easy just throw the 1/4 away.
Yeah, I think
Brawl becomes stronger now.
with that's true. Brawl does become stronger, but with the War Axe in hand, I think either play was setting up lethal. Like you didn't have to force the 8 from the face, 8 from the hero power through to the face to set up lethal. So I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it, but there's definitely something that comes out of a Hearthstone player when you are the furthest ahead in games. That's when you become the most pedantic about making sure you are playing 100% optimally, inventing crazy worlds where you lose.
It's how do I lose as opposed to how do I win, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, everyone has a different opinion as to how you're supposed to play in positions like that to close it out, but most likely what will have happened is that someone on the Greek team will have come up with an incredible fringe scenario where Greece lose this game, and this play plays around that eventuality better.
Right, so we are going to see Brawl now. Stonehill lives. Justice. Here we go.
And it appears that Like a Boss was on the other side of that argument.
I'm with Boss on this one. It looks like we were the same here. You could have thrown away a 1/4 off the board and kept a bigger, juicier minion in case of a taunt.
Yeah, I definitely get the impression based on Greece's interactions right now that there was significant disagreement as to the lines on the previous turn.
Yeah, don't get me wrong though. This you know, the same thing can kind of happen again. The Stonehill can trade in. Oh, my opponent gains 2 armor.
Yeah.
And then just execute hero power, drop the Daihon Matriarch or the Hatchling, whatever you even feel like at this point. Probably doesn't matter in the long run.
Look how animated they all are. Hero power happens first again, and Like a Boss again, he's not happy about it.
Ludicrous! I think they're just messing around this one.
It's very possible.
Do you think they're having bets on where Ragnaros will hit, and they're just like, oh no?
Yeah, they are
Absolutely
fine,
crazy.
Upstanding people who would do no such thing.
Of course. Only friendly bets. Okay, so Daihon is available. Matriarch. Just gonna go for the execute. Yeah, like I said, you know, not talking too much about the rest of this game, as you can probably do the maths and work out that a 2 armor up per turn is not going to help Hungary survive. And the only thing the Stonehill does is require or demand another target for the potential Ragnaros hero power. but they're too far behind to make much difference.
Yeah, the most interesting thing left remaining in this game as it plays itself out is just watching Greece slowly fall apart at the seams as they disagree on how exactly they would like to win this game 100% of the time.
It's kind of great. They're still like, no, it was fine. Always hero power first. This is not Warlock, guys. It's not always tap first. Sometimes you want to do other stuff.
Hungary, again, just desperately trying to find a way to dig themselves out. The Sulfurous pull here means that, you know, they have no ability to just even armor up and try and pay lip service to getting out of range of this damage from Die Insect coming back the other way.
I think the best they have is... Yep.
Now,
got it. Perfect. That was the exact play. And we see Cebu, along with Team Greece, a very unified team, as you can see.
Sure, yeah.
You know, actually take the win there and go 2-1 up versus Hungary. And you can see already they're all just, you're talking about the game. They were in a lot of deep conversation during the match as well. So definitely going against Greece. That's one of the teams where you're like, these guys are together, this is going to be rough. As opposed to, say, the team's built up of players who don't really know each other that well. Yes, they're fully allowed to communicate between each other, but the communication won't be as strong as people who have spent a lot of time together before.
Yeah, and on that note, I know Leica Boss in particular, I interviewed him in great length and great detail when he came for his HCT championship event, and he was talking with great pride about the work that he does to try and bring the Greek community together, and he's even got an app put together specifically for the Greek Hearthstone community that a lot of them use. He's a huge way behind it. Here you see the brawl, which could have just found their way back into it, and you see the reaction as the passive play on the previous turn. If I had to guess, I would say that Leica Boss was saying, this play is so much worse against Brawl, why would you do this? Followed by multiple expletives in Greek, and then was feeling justified in his opinion as the Brawl came out.
Yeah, but now Leica Boss is the one who's going to be in control. He's going to be piloting the next deck, which is going to be the Shaman for Greece versus Chaincaller's Mage. So we finally get to see a Mage today.
We do.
Haven't seen anything too crazy from that class today, but saw from yesterday with the Elemental Mage that was played out in the first match. But yeah, Shaman versus Mage, going to be an interesting one. A matchup I don't think we've covered too much in terms of HGG so far.
I don't believe so, no. And assuming most common picks here, we're going to see some kind of Elemental Shaman going up against a Freeze Mage from the other side. We saw some Quest Mage being played with in week 1, but once Monsanto put together this Freeze Mage list that most people have been basing whatever deck they're now playing on, I think most people just kind of realize that Freeze Mage kind of does what Quest Mage is trying to do in a superior fashion. You know, Ice Block is essentially a time warp effect in itself. There is a turn where your opponent is not allowed to kill you. That's what time warp is aiming to do. So if Freeze Mage can still get the job done, there's still enough burn knocking around after Ice Lance and Forgotten Torch have left the format, and Freeze Mage is probably just going to be a superior option to the Quest in most scenarios.
Yeah, I think the only thing Freeze Mage really suffers from is how predictable it is. It's not like Freeze Mage of old where you can just OTK someone. You kill them in one turn with a big combo. You know that they run Pyro, or they run Pyro Antonidas or double Pyro. You know that you cannot just die in one turn from certain amounts of health. Whereas that wasn't always available. If you saw like Emperor come down in the previous set, then you'd be like, oh, I might just die from 30 health this turn. And it's like, cross your fingers and hope.
Right.
Whereas now, Pyroblast, 1 turn, 10 damage, but 1 turn, and then you Frostbolt, Fireball, 15 damage, 1 turn. You can very systematically work out the volumes of damage. The only thing there is sneaky Primordial Glyphs that can be Fireball, which is like, oh, okay. But other than that, there isn't too many different variations, right? With Ice Lance out of the cards as well.
Yeah, if anything, it feels like the Quest Mage kind of fills that spot where there were some matchups back in the Kobold Ice Lance build where I'll come back to this point in a second. Let's take a look at Leica Boss and Chaincaller here. Leica Boss, as I mentioned just now, was a competitor in the 2016 Europe HCT Summer Championship where I got to meet him for the first time. And there you go, active in the local Greek Hearthstone scene. And I mentioned he is very, very proud of it. He really does enjoy talking about the work that he does for the local scene.
Yeah, I love the way that in TJ's notes here at the bottom, it says the misspelling of the word boss is intentional in Leica Boss's name. But in the spelling of Leica Boss in his notes, he's used a normal B and not the actual letter
The
like
S set, yeah, the double S in
Yeah.
Germanic languages. Yeah.
Yeah, he probably couldn't find it on his American keyboard.
There you go.
No doubt. Probably couldn't work out how to do that. But Chaincaller as well has a reasonable number of HCT points. And it does believe...
Wait, let me stop you right there. There is some conflict on Team Hungary. One of their players said that they do not like hearing Hungary jokes. And then Chaincaller says that even though Hungary is a small country, they have very skilled players that are hungry for success. Those two guys are going to have words with each other and figure out whether we are allowed to make Hungary jokes or not.
I did think of about 3 so far today.
There you go.
So, but no, I've not used them, so I've been holding them back. So we'll wait to get permission for those ones. But yeah, you know, it's going to be the Mage versus the Shaman coming up. And you can continue.
Yeah, back to the point I was making, which is it feels like Quest Mage kind of fills the spot where there were some matchups previously with Kobold Ice Lance build where you had to save for OTK.
Yep.
That was your option. New Freeze Mage cannot OTK. Sorcerer's Apprentice, Antonidas, Quest Mage can OTK. So it feels like if you're bringing Quest Mage, it's specifically for those kind of matchups that you're aiming at, and it is, in fact, going to be the Quest Mage.
Yeah, Exodia version as well with the Molten Reflection. Looks like it's going to be also... Well, I'm presuming it is. It could still be Giants. But
Rare, less likely because we see the Molten Reflection.
yeah, exactly. The Molten Reflection is a kind of key nod towards Sorcerer's Apprentice ×4, then Antonidas and go. So yeah, that's going to be a joy to watch from here from Hungary, whereas Greece looks like it's so just at the moment at least sort of standardish mid-range, potentially Elemental Shaman, but Firefly is not a nod to Elemental Shaman, believe it or not. Firefly is just a card you probably play, especially along the lines of Flame Tongue, potential Bloodlust as well.
Yeah, Firefly is just a nod to wanting a one-drop in your deck. I talked about this yesterday, I believe, but, you know, Argent Squire was being played in a few decks as a high-quality one-drop. People realize that it just doesn't interact that well with Fireflies, and then by extension, the best way to counter a Firefly, if that's what you're looking for, is just a Firefly of your own. The card's just very, very powerful and very, very high value. And this is something that I was really interested in watching Amnesiac play in the USA's crushing of the United Kingdom in Week 1, is that he turned down a turn 1 Firefly to be able to use not only the main Firefly body, but the Flame Elemental as well as key Elemental procs on turns that he wanted to make that happen.
Oh yeah, he held on to it, right?
Yeah.
Just waited and waited and waited to actually play them out. So, not always as simple as just Firefly on 1. But sometimes Doomsay on 2 could be. Always risky with Doomsay though against Shaman because Hex is so prevalent in lists as well that you can't rely on a Doomsayer going off like you can against some decks. It's pretty much like hope for it, which is why I actually don't mind this, because it's like, well, sure, Hex it. Like, that's your turn 3 gone, you've developed no more minions, great. Or you buy some time or devolve. Is this ever reasonable if you're against Quest deck? How many opportunities do you get?
What are you going to Hex, right? Yeah. I mean, so it's a matter of mana efficiency, really. You can keep going against this Doomsayer, just keep the initiative, keep the tempo. You could devolve to save a mana and allow you to just develop another one-drop. The problem is that one-drop is a Flame Elemental right now, and you are holding on to that to be able to start your Elemental chain through Servant of Kalamos to Fire Elemental, pick up a Blaze Caller off the Servant of Kalamos. GG, everything seems rosy. So I personally, if you're going to kill this Doomsayer, which is a question in itself, would Hex it, and it looks like that's what's going to happen.
We're just going to gain the slight advantage there, because you don't want it to go off and just kind of waste a turn. Hex and develop anything onto the board, but it means your board isn't completely clear either, and now we start seeing some cycling to the power cards here in this deck. Kabbalah's Tome is a key one of your favorite cards, of course, so I feel like I need to mention every time that it does help in this deck quite dramatically, giving you 3 cards that can help towards proccing the quest.
Yeah, finding the time to play it is crucial, though, and quite often what you'll see in the Sorcerer's Apprentice deck, which this now with the Antonidas draw is almost certainly 99.9% going to be the Sorcerer's Apprentice version, is you can actually fit that Kabbalist Tome into one of your 2 game-ending turns with the Time Warp. Because you have so many apprentices on board, you can cast Kabbalist Tome, and as long as your Kabbalist Tome doesn't hit, you know, Flame Strike, Firelands Portal, you get something cheap enough to be able to fit in and end the game.
Yeah, very important as well that Hungary were on the coin, and the coin counts towards the quest, so that's one already given. These are some pretty cheap options here as well.
Cheap options are what you're looking for. Cheap options that actually have an effect against the deck you're playing against, doubly so. And Arcane Explosion definitely falls into that category against Shaman that really does operate with a lot of these early token minions in the opening turns.
Yeah, I'm just staring at Bloodlust at the moment.
Yeah, 14 damage right now, so even this early on, we need to start keeping an eye on exactly how much damage that is going to do.
Well, there's always the thought with Bloodlust where, do you just use it when you have a board? Because are you ever going to get that kind of value again? There's a potential for Coin Blizzard, there's a potential for Frost Nova Chains. You know, it's really difficult to work out exactly when it's optimal unless it's just lethal.
I don't like it this turn. I mean, I like that point. I think that is a great thing to keep an eye on, but specifically in this situation, you have to Servant of Kalamos, because otherwise your elemental chain is just kind of in the dumpster. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you could, if you Bloodlust this turn, you could just fire Elemental next turn, then go Servant.
You could.
So there are options. You're not completely locked out. But yes, Servant of Kalamos as ASAP.
Wow, this is something I definitely wasn't expecting. He's going to go out ahead and kind of a little low-pressure turn here, just paying some respect to that Arcanologist. It does slow him down significantly, so he is obviously looking at this the same way as you. It's now looking at a potential Fire Elemental into Kalamos turn most of the time. Second Kabbalist Tome now drawn. This hand needs to be emptied before it can be filled with Kabbalist Tome cards now.
Sounds like a proverb. Your hand needs to be emptied before it can be filled. Forget all you know so you can learn. And that's what it translates into sometimes.
Easier for some than others.
I mean, I know a lot of key stuff, so there's no point me forgetting my stuff. It's you and your southern ways probably need to be forgotten.
What? What does that even mean?
See? You not hit the right level of what's the word I'm looking for?
Damn, debated.
Yeah, a oneness to understand.
So as of right now, there are 10 cards in hand. Arcanologist is going to draw another card. Babbling Book is going to draw another card. Coining them both is about the only effective way I can see to get cards out of hand right now, or coining the Ice Barrier has a similar effect. And there you see, as Raven mentioned, Coin did proc the Quest Activator, activating spells that did not start in your deck. The Coin is not a card that you choose to put in your deck, so it does count towards the Quest count.
Yep. The Quest only being at 1 though this late in the game.
It's not
obviously
that unusual.
It's not. This is not one that you rush out a lot of the time, because one, you need the pieces of the puzzle anyway, and currently Snow Sorcerer's Apprentice is available, or the Molten Reflection either, for the huge OTK. So it's about pretty much drawing your deck. You know, this is kind of like Freeze Mage, where you draw out your deck, then kill them with the combo. But I'm still going to be interested as to when Greece decides to pull the trigger on this Bloodlust.
Interesting. Off curve again with the Servant of Kalamos. Could have, like we mentioned, just Fire Elemental face and kept going. I mean, there really aren't too many great targets that you want to snipe with a Fire Elemental.
There's 3, yeah.
Probably a second Arcanologist. There's Acolyte of Pains, but if Acolyte of Pains are getting played, they're probably getting pinged immediately for value. So interesting that they are just forcing themselves off curve a little bit here, but now with the board as wide as it is, Bloodlust is just becoming a terrifying prospect for Hungary to have to face down.
Yeah, this Mana Tide as well has been getting work done for Greece. Just been on the board almost forever at this point, and keeping Greece's hand extremely full of options and pressure opportunities here to go against this Time War Mage. There's just not a lot of good options here, is there? I mean, Blizzard into Arcane Explosion actually at least deals with the Mana Tide as well, but not much else. Does reduce the board down to just 2 minions.
Oh boy. This could be an issue. If the board state is not answered, as of right now, there is 5, 6, 7 damage in play, plus 18, that's 25. They would still live through Bloodlust in this position, which is crucial information.
Damage, though.
It is.
This deck doesn't have a way to heal outside of Alexstrasza himself, but then suddenly, well, you combo. Oh, does it even run Alexstrasza? It won't, right?
No, it doesn't run out.
Yeah, if it's the Exodi version. Yeah, so it won't actually. So this deck has just no way to heal outside of Ice Barrier. One's already been played. The other one's just been played now onto the board. So it's an additional 8 health when the trades go in, but still, like, you go into turn 7. You go into just the later turns, the more draws from the mage. Is your board ever going to be bigger than it is now?
Is a very good question.
I just press Bloodlust.
And you know that you haven't seen any freeze effects yet. You know that random cards are starting to be generated, which, yeah, okay, you're not going to play around a randomly generated Flame Strike when they've only generated 2 cards, I think, at this point, one of which was from Primordial Glyph. So if Primordial Glyph gave them a generated Flame Strike, it almost certainly would have been played on the previous turn. Although at 5 mana, they didn't have enough to fit in the ping.
There we
But
are.
yeah,
I like this.
overall, I totally agree with this decision. Just force the damage through. I think Greece have got a great handle on potentially the last turn their board is going to get to freely attack. And I love them just cashing in the damage where they can here.
At the end of the day, you know, this doesn't finish them off. It doesn't proc, well, there's no ice block, but even if there's ice block, it wouldn't even proc it regardless. But I think it's just convert the card, forget about what it does on the board, and go 5 mana, 1 billion damage. You'd probably play that card.
Yes. Crucially as well, if that was an ice block that was equipped and not an ice barrier, which of course Greece had no way of knowing before they attacked, they would have pushed them all the way down to 7 this turn. And then they have Alakir coming out next turn for 6, which means it just as little as 1 damage sticking on the board would have allowed them to proc the block the next turn. That is 3 that they are up to now just like that, having used the Flame Strike and the 0 mana Arcane Explosion. And now they have also started to create some space in their hand to be able to use those Kabbalist tomes, but they're still a long way from piecing together the full combination, which requires both Sorcerer's Apprentices and at least 1 Molten Reflection to even start going off.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting as well because just looking at the Hot Spring Guardian in hand, heal to your own face means nothing in this matchup at all, because once the mage has Time Warp and has the pieces, the game ends. That's just the way it is, unless they're against another mage with Ice Block. But still, the Flame Elemental now can clear up the Archaeologist very cleanly, open up for hero power as well. Or you can just start to develop more minions again, go for the Tar, maybe the Mana Tide as well, into just a hero power. But I feel like you just Fire Elementals looking really nice here.
Yeah, Aya doesn't look too powerful here. I think that it's still a 1-1 Jade, right? Has there even been a Jade Claws or anything being played so far? So yeah, it would just be 1-1 Death Rattle 2-2, which just isn't even that powerful. There's the Molten Reflections, getting there, starting to piece together some key pieces of the puzzle at this point. Novice will help to draw through. Doomsayer pick up now alongside that Blizzard they have for next turn, and they know that Hex got used on their first Doomsayer as well, so won't necessarily be expecting a Devolve to be coming out against them. Might be feeling like that Doomsayer might stick to the board here, and they're just going to try and take the opportunity now to give them that free turn of tempo they need to cast a Kabbalist Tome without getting punished for it.
And something's got double Jade Lightning as well. This changes a few things, because that's suddenly 8 damage, which would leave another 7 on the board. And then Alakir will push it to 6 without any help. So yeah, not going to line up anything too crazy yet, but suddenly 7 of Kalimos being live also means that you can just get a Kalimos for additional 6 from hand.
Yes. Yeah, Kalimos or a Blaze Caller for that matter.
Yeah, true, yeah.
5, yeah. It's not a big difference.
Unfortunately, the Jade Lightnings don't line up very well with the Burst Elementals, other than the Fire Elemental. So you can't play them both.
Yeah, and imagine Devolve is going to happen.
Let's see what happens.
Just to freely let them develop, and then Servant's going to come down. They have been offered the Kalimos, which I'm sure is going to be the pick here for some burst damage, as well as the fact that the other 2 were just extremely low value.
Tar Creeper!
Yeah, exactly. Tar Creeper get you for 1 every turn is not what they're looking for. That is Molten Reflection number 2. They're starting to piece this together. They just need to push that quest counter up and draw some cards now to get them up towards those crucial Sorcerer's Apprentices that will be able to end the game very, very soon.
Yeah, pretty horrible though, because... Oh, they're going for Vaporize. Okay. Because this is the only turn, I think, or the 1 turn before, they've got a chance to not play Ice Block. Because Ice Block isn't live. A lot of the time you play against Time Warp Mage by Ice Block just always being up until you proc it, right? It feels like they always get it quite early on with Archaeologists as well. But yeah, Ice Block is not live here, so definitely need to be careful. They have seen 1 Bloodlust, so must be feeling at least reasonably confident they don't just die from 15. But, you know, 1 more turn of minion development, and suddenly you're in trouble again.
Yep. So between Kalimosing the face and the 2 Jade Lightnings over 2 turns now, they do have the Ice Block potentially set up, assuming from their perspective that that 4-5 is going to connect. But they're about to get some bad news.
Yeah. Vape Nation, indeed. As the 4-5 was going to get killed off now. There we go. And the response from Greece. Not too bad. It's weird that it pushes it back to its spot. Yeah. It's like, get back, and then die.
So Alakir can push 6, which is the same as Kalimos would push, but, you know, is a perhaps a trickier minion to remove on the next turn. Still, it's tricky for them to kind of set up a 2-turn pop situation here, or a 2-turn lethal situation from their perspective even, because they just aren't even seeing the ice block coming down yet.
9 damage available. Well, to be fair, spell damage roll plus double Jade Lightning gets them. Primordial Glyph going to be important here.
So 4 is the count for Hungary right now, and no Sorcerer's Apprentices in sight just yet. So there are 2 crucial conditions that need to be filled here before they can really get anywhere.
Also bear in mind there needs to be some form of spell you can play the turn to prop the first fireball as well. Right?
Right.
Yeah,
there always
is, but it's just something to like.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm sure someone makes that mistake.
Yes,
it is
something that you could catastrophically mess up when you're trying to figure out whether you have lethal or not in the last couple of turns.
It's like, oh, I've set it up. Oh, where are my fireballs?
Yeah.
Whoops. I mean, you just go for it. Yeah, I was gonna say, roll that spell damage totem. Show you're a true shaman master of the elements, and roll that spell damage totem. Because I genuinely feel a lot of instances like, well, one, it develops some minions, and okay, do you just do it anyway? Because you just you don't Kalimos next turn though.
No.
So you Kalimos and
Kalimos this turn if you're going to go down that line, but even then you don't necessarily have to. You could just play Hot Spring Guardian this turn and Jade Lightning instead, but that's not the world's cleanest setup either.
I think here though you at least set up as a slightly stronger Aya, so I think this is okay. Drop down the thing from below as well if required. Again, what your opponent does in terms of going for lethal doesn't matter. They either hit it or they don't, right? So you don't need to think about, oh, I'll save my thing from below for a refill. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because you either kill them or you don't. You know, it's like the game is very straightforward in that essence. It's how quickly you can prot the block and try and race them.
There is one apprentice, but no card draw effects in hand just yet. They do have Kabbalist Tome and Primordial Glyph that can pick them up Arcane Intellects, though. Kabbalist Tome, not quite enough room to be using that card effectively, though. Their hand size starting to get a bit full again. The 4-mana Blizzard is a very nice pickup, however.
We can see it won't make too much difference. The block is getting procced regardless. But yeah, you know, in terms of Chain Caller and Team Hungary's side, this could buy them enough time for one more draw.
It also crucially means that the block potentially gets procced at 5. If Kalimos just has to come down without anything attacking, the block gets procced at 5, then that Jade Lightning just alone from hand on the next turn potentially doesn't proc cleanly again on the turn after. Yeah,
setting up the mana bind as well, so if any spells are played, then they...
6.
Yeah, then they can, you know, then that's the free spell, right, to start the chain, so... Let's see what happens. It is... The fact that quests rewards spells is insane. Because you're like, oh, well, this is quite a hard combo to do. It's not. You just quadruple the apprentice and the quest costs 1 to play. So it's pretty easy to do. Fire, fly going to be drawn. Not too much of an impact here. No spell damage again. So it's got to be the Kalimos this turn. Just has to be.
Does.
You cannot wait a turn when this happens. I wonder how worried they are about Errant Entity. Probably.
I mean, they're worried about just dying on the spot next turn is what they're worried about. There is the opportunity for Hungary here to go off with the Apprentice and the 2 Reflections, get the 3 Apprentices instead of 4. Of course, then on the following turn when you play Antonidas, that means you're only firing a maximum of 3 Fireballs as they cost 1 each.
See what happens? Oh. Nope.
They're just going to go for it, I think. Yep.
And they have to.
So Blood Mage, Molten for 3, Molten for 2, means that then their Time Warp quest will cost 2. Kabbalist Tome,
draw another card.
And Kabbalist Tome is playable here as well, which is can be a big deal on the following turn if they get. But if they get the 4th Apprentice now, that is a potential huge deal.
Yep. Wait, it's victory.
Mirror Entity are going to be used as their card to proc the Antonidas for the first Fireball. If it comes out here, it's going to see what comes out. The Loot Hoarder draw. So yeah, only...
Oh, okay, Grease, calm down. So Tome into Ice Block, I guess.
Well, I mean, Tome into Ice Block, yeah, great. We live another turn, but you kill all my Sorcerer's Apprentices and the game is over. I have no way of winning.
Tome into Flame Strike, right?
Was there ever a way? Tome into... I'm trying to, like, Blood Mage and then...
Molten Reflection.
Antonidas. Oh, yeah, Molten would have got there, but then...
It's free.
It would have cost 1, and then there would have
sorry, yeah, it's free. Yeah,
Antonidas to come down, a free spell to proc. Yeah, that would have actually
Molten
gone
Reflection would have got him.
Yeah.
Flame Strike's not bad, though, either. You can clear off the board here. Because you can Flame Strike and still Forbidden Healing.
Runs out on me.
Forbidden Flame, sorry.
Yes.
What I'm talking about. To kill off the Calamants. And because the trick here is not losing the Sorcerer's Apprentices.
Yeah, and just loading up everything they possibly can this turn, trying to make as many problems happen for Greece, and they have actually created a very, very awkward board state because there is not a Lightning Storm to deal with these apprentices right now, and they're just pushing for 9.
This is the new version of OTK.
Yep.
Punch them in the face with apprentices and hope for the best. Jade Claws is going to be a guaranteed kill on one of these apprentices at least. Jade Lightning on another. But quite frankly, with 3 secrets down, worst case scenario, this could be Counterspell, Ice Block, Ice Barrier.
Yeah, what even are they? I was too busy trying to... One is Mana Bind, one is Potion of Polymorph, and one is Mirror Entity. So if they just Jade Lightning, Jade Claws the face, they actually have lethal. Right? There is nothing that stops that source of damage going to face, but how can you possibly get that read? There are 3 secrets in play. How can none of them be Counterspell, Ice Block, or Ice Barrier that would all shut that down?
My answer to that is, now they've not rolled spell damage, is there any other option?
Is a very good
Because do you just say, okay, this is easily done here. I either get them or I don't. I'm going to see the Mana Bind, which means now they... Oof, the choice. Because they could Tar Creeper as well. Sorry. You know what I mean, though? They could try and defend against these
This is such a weird situation. This is
they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it.
This is technically a missed lethal, but you cannot even blame them for this decision. There are 2 secrets in play. Any Ice Barrier or Ice Block
everything they
would
played
prevent this.
hasn't procced Mirror Entity either.
That's just lethal.
I just got...
That's insane.
Oh my lord. Okay. Well...
Wait, is it though? They can't... they lost too many apprentices, right? At 7, 10, 11,
12.
12. They're 1 off.
But how does Team Greece win?
Is an excellent
How'd they do
question
5?
as well. Trading the apprentice, trading the Blood Mage here, and they're going to push face, set themselves up for Fireball Lethal on the next turn. And Greece have just used... They didn't play an Elemental last turn!
Look at Like a Boss's face! If they played an Elemental, they would have won. They
hit
not
face.
Ice Barrier
It's not
now.
an Ice Barrier. They'll never know. Hungary, you must never tell them. We will delete this VOD immediately so they can never check.
The thousands upon thousands of people. Oh, they just see the spells now.
There it is. There is the bad news for you, Greece. You had the game in your hands. You had the series in your hands, and it all came crumbling down around you.
The weirdest Exodium Age win I have ever seen to date. But to be honest, it's a very tough call, as you said. How do you even imagine that 3 secrets in, there's not one of them blocks you out from anything, from a minion attacking, from an attack to face, from a spell. But after seeing the spell damage totem get missed, I genuinely feel like you kind of just go for it.
Right, and
because...
So they cast the Maelstrom Portal as well, which procced Mana Bind. So that immediately, there's 1 down, and also they didn't see Counterspell go off, which means that that's one of the options that those 2 remaining secrets isn't, and it's one of the options that you're trying to beat, because Jade Lightning is one of the things you need to fire at face. So suddenly in that position, maybe. I mean, I honestly don't know what I would have done in that position.
I'll just be like, meh, we'll see.
But this is the, this is just, Quest Mage in a nutshell. Yes, these are randomly generated cards, which can be frustrating to play against, but it's all about learning how to use them in the most effective method possible. And this was a huge combination for Hungary on the Quest Mage. Flame Strike and the 0 mana Arcane Explosion, which we called all the way back early in the game when the Primordial Glyph was played. It's like 3 spells that you can play are of great benefit to you. If they're actually effective against the deck you're playing against, that's all the better. And that pairing there worked out beautifully for them.
Yeah, and the next pairing we've got up is Cebu and Exigo going at it. Mage versus Rogue. If this is Freeze Mage, this is Quest Rogue, this is one of the dominant decks that actually throws Quest Rogue in the bin, basically, most of the time.
Yes. Yes, it does. And it's actually very possible that you can get an aggressive start with Freeze Mage if that's the deck that it's going to be. You don't always just win through, freeze your board, annoy you, get a nice block
You have
up.
minions.
Alex Straza. Yeah, sometimes you just curve out better than they do. It's weird to say that about Freeze Mage, but sometimes it happens. You just play Arcanologist, you just play Cabal Courier, you get tempo on the board, you push 6, 8, 10 damage with your early game minions, and then you just start going, all right, Fireball face.
Hang on. By Freeze Mage, are we talking Control Mage or Freeze Mage? Because it's different lists now.
It's true.
Think about
The control. Oh,
with Medivh.
What's the? I always forget. Medivh's Valet. Sorry.
Okay.
I always forget the name of that card. I will fix it eventually.
There is a Control Mage list going around that runs Medivh and actually Cabal Courier that is knocking around a little bit at the moment. But I believe this list came to fruition after the deck list.
Yeah, literally last 24 hours. I think it was posted on the competitive Hearthstone Reddit is where it got a lot of visibility, and I don't think that happened that long ago. So. In time for deck submissions for this week, probably not. But if it keeps getting a little bit of traction, yeah, who knows? We might see some hot Medivh the Guardian action coming out in week 3. But yeah, Freeze Mage against Quest Rogue, it's definitely one of the big reasons why Freeze Mage has continued its long and storied history in Hearthstone, even after getting hit with the rotation bat in the form of Ice Lance. And Quest Rogue is the matchup that you do just really want to come up against when you're playing Freeze.
Yeah, it's one of the few ways you can, not guarantee, nothing guaranteed in Hearthstone, but you can feel good about going to a Quest Rogue matchup and feel like you're pretty favored in it. But it could be Miracle, which can be a rough matchup indeed. But in fact, it is not. It is Quest Rogue, and there's Nantonitis, there's Double Doomsayer in the Blizzard. This looks like Greece may have the edge here.
Certainly does. One early Doomsayer is fairly useful, but it's also... It really depends on how quickly the Quest Rogue player gets along their quest progression, because turn 5 with Frost Nova is actually a very key opportunity for the Doomsayer to come down, as long as your opponent hasn't gone like turbo quest, right? Because if they're already in quest territory by that point, then a 0-7 is fairly easy for them to deal with charges from hand. But that combination can often just buy you a really crucial turn to just develop some minions on the board turn after. I like doing it a lot, if I can, on turn 6, actually, Frost Nova Doomsayer, and then literally just slam Antonidas on 7. Just put it on the board and say, even if they have their quest activated, that's 2 charges they have to send into it, which are then dead because they cannot, then they can't bounce them over and over again and get repeated damage. The 5 attack is the key of Antonidas, right?
It's almost like playing a 5-7 taunt, which is great.
Right.
Okay, so Alex Straza in the opening hand is not going to come into play until much later in the game. The game may even be decided by that point. But Doomsayer early, Loot Hoarder early, and Arcane Intellect early as well means that there's going to be plenty of card draw for Greece. Vanish in the opening hand, really not what you want unless you can draw into a prep quick enough.
Yeah, less than ideal. Firefly in the opening hand, though, is definitely one of the big things you want. Swashbuckler card that's been floating in and out of some lists recently. It seems like a perfect card for this because it's something that gives you a huge amount of value by bouncing it over and over, so it seems like a great card to try and complete your quest with. The problem is that the things it gives you are either kind of spells that are just useless to you, or they're minions that cost like 4, 5, 6, 7 mana, and they're 5/5s, just like your 1-drops are. So I've definitely seen some people cutting swashes from the list, especially because of the point that I've talked about quite a lot over the last 2 days. It pulls patches out of your deck, and playing it in the early game and pulling patches out of your deck is so much weaker than doing the same thing after the quest is activated.
Could see the option here now after the quest was played on turn 1 for Ixigo. Could just go for Firefly Elemental, but then it's kind of giving a nod to the fact that you aren't bouncing those, and often Firefly is the key bounce target for the Rogue Quest decks.
Yeah, again, definitely, it's, if you compare Firefly to Swashbuckler, right? If you continue to bounce Firefly, it puts a 1-mana card in your hand over and over again, which can then become 5/5s later in the game. Or you can draw the Igneous Elemental, which gives you 2 more Flame Elementals in your hand, and suddenly, you've got all these fantastic 1-mana 1/2s that you can just rush out and finish the quest, whereas bouncing Swashbuckler has this effect of just giving you random nonsense in your hand that doesn't really help you achieve much of anything.
Plenty of discussion going on though, and definitely a lot of thought, because this is not a simple Rogue opening. No Shadow Steps, no bounces available.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if this long deliberation ends in Dagger Pass. Yeah. I mean, you can hit. I don't really see too much upside to it, especially now you drew the deck hand, but there's also a decent chance you just re-dagger again next turn with how slow your hand is looking right now. Loot Hoarder or Glyph, I would suspect that cards from your own deck are slightly more important than Primordial Glyph cards right now. You know you have those 2 Frost Novas to dig towards to pair with that Doomsayer. Although I haven't done the maths on that, and I probably should. Like, if you have 2 Frost Novas in your deck, are you more likely to draw a Frost Nova?
Or Glyph.
Or draw it off Glyph? Someone who has done that maths, please tweet me. I would love to take the lazy way out and have someone just tell me.
I'll just reply with like 7. And you're like, what? 2 deckhands, though, are available, but still no bounce effects. It is very hard, actually, to try and make some form of plan when you have 0 bounce effects available, apart from Vanish on turn 6.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you even do at this point? I wouldn't even mind Swashbuckler here.
Right.
Because you need something, right?
I agree, yeah. And but again, it's just that Patch's downside, particularly against Freeze Mage, where every point of charge damage counts. Like, Patches after Quest is just so much stronger, but this kind of hand right here is one of the reasons why we've started to see people running Wisp in the recent days, because Wisps can actually fix this kind of hand, because, you know, at 0 mana, it's actually playable with Vanishes, so you can actually turn Vanish into an effective bouncer, which is really hard to do with any other card.
Vanish is normally throw away my opponent's taunts or big minions, reset my hand, replay my hand, and win. Vanish is like a weird combo finisher more often than anything else. Yeah, it's gonna just take it slow here. Just re-dagger up, kill off the Loot Hoarder, and move on from there. Greece have a few more options now, but just Arcane Intellect on 3 often feels great. With only 7 cards, well, 8 cards in hand total, means that they've got plenty of room to draw a couple and blow a card. So Coin means it can be held onto as well for a bit of a late game option.
Yeah, fairly awkward hand developing for the Mage here as well. No real clear signals as to where you're going. Like, the Alexstrasza into burn plan is there in pieces in the hand, but there's no block to develop yet to really make sure you have the security to do that. And even right now with 8 cards in hand, Arcane Intellect goes down to 7 and then back up to 9. So they're even just starting to run into some hand size considerations. There is now the block. They do have 1 freeze in the form of Blizzard. So to me, this hand is speaking to a fairly conventional Freeze Mage path this game. Just get the block up, freeze the board a couple of times, Alex on 9, burn them out.
Yeah, probably a little bit frustrating not to see a Arcanologist early, because, well, what would Exego have done versus not hit it 3 times with a dagger? You know what I mean? Like, what would he have actually done? Like, not a lot at this point. So a bit of a disappointing there for the Greek team, but they do have plenty of options as well. And even though, as you said, you know, it's kind of hard to empty cards from hand now for the Mage, Primordial Glyph can often you can often make that work to your advantage in terms of getting rid of the spell you draw.
Yeah, absolutely, and still holding on to the coin here is actually kind of crucial, although their next turn is a little bit awkward without coin usage, unless they want to go Glyph Doomsayer, for example, just to buy a free turn of tempo, because, you know, coining Alex on 8 or even coining just Tempo Antonidas on 6 can actually make a huge difference here. Since Exego here is so slow with his quest development, you have time to just kind of plan all these kind of cheeky options for yourself.
Yeah, I think I'd actually quite like to see the Doomsayer Glyph, I think, because next turn you go into Ice Block, potentially Frostbolt, but now we've seen Valet. Like, Ice Block Valet next turn is completely fine. Then you suddenly go into the power turns with the coin, as you said, to go that 1 turn earlier. So, yeah, I'm a fan. You can Glyph first, see what happens. You could even just Glyph Ping if you really weren't too bothered, but I think Doomsayer feels okay. The opponent's not going to quest out, so Doomsayer is that much more difficult to deal with.
Yeah, it's awkward. The turn just does seem to get a lot nicer if you use the coin here, because, you know, it feels like wasting a Doomsayer on a board where you could just Ice Block and coin the Valet and be significantly ahead on board anyway. It just seems very strange, right? But that coin is such a valuable resource to them right now. Flame Geyser costs 0, and they have an Antonidas in their hand. I like where this is going.
I also like where this is going. Flame Guys are just nice for an extra bit of damage, but most importantly, it's a spell.
Do you know what? Volcanic Potion is actually a very good security blanket in this matchup, because sometimes you run into issues of them having quite an annoying pre-quest board.
Yeah, then if they quest,
right.
dead.
So Volcanic Potion is always a useful tool to be able to keep control of things, and they actually chose to just pivot a little bit there. It didn't look like that was the initial plan, just following the actions of where they were sending the mouse. Chose to just use the Volcanic Potion immediately.
I think one of them probably said, hey, we've got Blizzard. So, you know, Blizzard kind of does the same job as well as like the emergency button. And I mean, look at this. I mean, Hungary and Mexico here are just
vanish.
Going to go for the prep vanish.
Yep.
And that's going to enable the quest next turn.
Oh, they won't have mana for the quest next turn.
Yeah, they can finish the quest next turn.
Yes.
Or they'll just try to prep and be like, lol.
That works too, yeah. And being able to vanish alongside the patches kind of offsets a little bit that whole big issue that I've been talking
pay a
about.
mana, but great.
Sure, yeah. They'll happily pay a mana for a 5/5 charger, and they have 4 of them in their hand right now.
Yeah, and even that play, though, also kind of helps out Greece a little bit, because now they know what they're going to do, right? They know exactly the game plan. They can probably guess the next 2 turns from Exigo here, and they can at least then form a plan saying, okay, he can do the quest next turn. He can make the quest live. He might have a prep, he might not. What do we do in those instances?
It depends with you know, how much experience Greece really have in playing Quest Rogue, because if they've played a lot of this deck and they're familiar with it, they'll actually, it's kind of a I know that you know situation. They'll know that they actually won't finish the quest next turn, because if you go deckhand, you can't play the quest unless there's a prep, which means your deckhands then get killed, and that's 2 charges that you no longer get to charge for 5 damage for the rest of the game. So the quest will not get finished until the turn where the quest can be activated. So it looks like this is kind of an anti-quest presentative turn right here, which is interesting to me.
There's a chance that Exigo just finishes the quest. A small chance, in terms of I just want it live for everything going forward.
There is a chance.
Yeah,
I think it would be wrong for that to happen.
Yeah, not saying it's correct, because that's so much charge power. You know, that's it's you know, 2 charges insane. Youthful Brewmaster.
Ah, well,
that changes a few things.
That does change things now that he's drawn Bouncer and he can finish the quest and get it back to his hand. So, nope.
Okay. Yeah, he would lose 1, right?
He would lose 1.
Yes. Okay, now it's Siba's time.
Coin Tony, let's go. Do it.
I mean... I'm thinking...
Thinking noise coming from my right-hand side.
If there was 1 more mana, then you just set up, you know, Loot Hoarder Valet, and then go coin Alex Traza. Fireball.
Yes.
Possible, right?
Yes.
You know, because that's just, you just win.
Right.
And with Ice Block, oh, God, it's so close, isn't it? Do you think you can take a hit? Oh, it's just doing it. Okay,
it's definitely. You okay, so you take your logic there and reverse it, right? You don't have time to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I was wondering whether Blizzard ever gave him that 1 turn.
Right, but it
probably
is
doesn't.
The problem. Like, say there was a second Ice Block in hand right now. Say there was an Arcanologist in hand right now. These are security cards that you can say, okay, this is what I do on turn 6, this is what I do on turn 7, I coin Alex on 8, and then I just get them. And since I have a couple of Ice Blocks, I get those 2 cards done, right?
Yeah.
But this situation, since you don't have time to do that, this situation, as I described before, is just so beautiful because it forces charge minions to trade into your Antonidas in theory, and that removes them from play because they cannot be continually bounced afterwards. But now, Exigo just flipped that dynamic straight back on his head by just ripping that one-off prep off the top of the deck, and that is an Ice Block I quit casting. But
okay, I'm going to solo cast the rest of the game as Soto's quit only into match 2 of the day. I did wonder how long it would take him. Oh, he's back. Yeah, this is just absolutely insane. 20 damage. Can oh, interesting. Okay. He's going to trade. I mean, you could have put him to 1, but he wouldn't have put the block, which is just not enough in turns. So does have to trade the Antonidas, but this is a huge ask now for Team Greece. There's 2 Blizzards. Which are going to buy some time, but is it enough time?
It's a good question. So now we have Blizzard on 7, Blizzard on 8, and Alex Straza on 9. And if that happens while still having an Ice Block intact, or if you draw a second Ice Block in the meantime, then you have almost auto win from that point. But there is a Brewmaster. That is a second bounce. That is a block pop this turn.
Filthy.
Yeah.
It's the only words I've got for this deck sometimes. And by sometimes, I mean most of the time. Absolutely filthy indeed.
There is a bounce. There is a bounce. There is a charge. 5 damage apiece going through. Repeat the process. Dagger will pop at 1. Correct decision to do it on 2 different minions to heal them both up.
Yeah, I like the way there was a quick hover over the patches and oh, wait a second.
And there you go. Welcome to 1 health, and that becomes a very difficult situation now. Almost impossible for the Freeze Mage to dig themselves out of here. You're kind of in Glyph into 3rd ice block territory in situations like this these days.
Blizzard not going to help. Loot Hoarder Ping is the only opportunity, and even that... Oh, hang on. Loot Hoarder Ping would be for the... No, it can't do it. I was going to say Loot Hoarder Ping, Frost Nova, Frostbolt.
Yeah, too much.
Not going to be enough. Unless... Loot Hoarder, Ping, Glyph into Nova, Frostbolt. Does that work?
No, I mean,
oh, no.
Glyph only ever pays for itself.
Sorry,
it never saves
you
from any mana.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, because it's still 1 more.
Yep,
right?
so Blizzard, Frostbolt, try and live a turn is the only way they can get this done. But even then, now they're struggling to find a turn to both develop the Ice Block and Alexstrasza, the opponent, and they've now used their Frostbolt, which was part of their win condition. It's an uphill climb from here, even without mentioning the fact that that 1 card in hand for Hungary is a damn Ice Block.
Yeah, and you know what? You know what, Greece? This could have been avoided. This Quest Rogue shenanigans. If you just killed their Exodia Mage when you had the chance.
Oh,
woof!
Salt in the wounds from the man Raven to my right-hand side.
Just being honest.
So out of character, wow. When did you become such a savage?
Too much time spent with you, Saul. Unfortunately, that's what this HCG is doing to me. We're only in week 2, and I'm already turning, like, devolving myself at this point, I feel. Or becoming a sophisticated savage. I think that's a reasonable way to describe you. Indeed, Jaina.
Wait, what card does he have in his hand right now? I've missed it. It's a Loot Hoarder. So yeah, it's Loot Hoarder Ping time. Now Frost Nova is a pickup, but there's no other freeze in hand to freeze the face on this occasion, which means Frost Nova is not going to be good enough. The Ice Block draw would have bought 1 more turn, but again, no progress would have been made towards a win condition. And it appears like Greece are going to go out with honor.
Oh, look at it. You can see the disappointment on their face as well.
And you can see the elation from Hungary at the same time. Massive fist bump coming out from Hungary, jumping up out of their seats. They are over the moon, know the power of the team in Greece that they came up against. And that is a huge win for them to get on the board. Yeah, so crazy. So, you know, complete juxtaposition there between the 2 sets of players. You know, the absolute, you know, just devastation from Greece, as we mentioned earlier. Very, you know, emotional players. You can see a lot of them when they're on the camera. But Hungary, I think, just 100% relief, because that was not clean. That was not a clean victory for those guys across all the games, actually. That was very close and easily lost at multiple moments. They had lost that series. Yeah. In reality, 100% revealed information, caster vision, whatever you want to call it. They lost. That series was lost. But, you know, we have seen some mislethals in competitive Hearthstone. It's just a question of, can we really class that one from Greece in amongst them? Because it was such a tough decision as to whether you go... I'm sure a flurry of people on Twitter will let us know that we were completely incorrect and that it was completely the right play. Which, again, there was 3 secrets down to 2 after the Maelstrom available in that game. And it was very close indeed. But let's check out the group as Hungary takes the win and joins Slovakia at the top with an unbeaten record. South Korea played 1 extra game so far. But this is the story so far. Greece 0-2 after 2 matches. Not the start they were looking for. It goes without saying, but they were definitely, from my perspective, you know, in with a shout. Top 3 in the group will go through, and I would definitely consider them, just on my knowledge and the reputation of the players, to be one of the 3 strongest teams potentially in that group. And they are languishing at 0-2 so far. Yeah, and although it's still early days, you know, next week, you know, if they play, probably not, because they've played 2 so far, but, you know, the next time they play, well, if they lose again, that's just almost guaranteed out, I think, at that point. So it's going to get progressively more difficult. All the pressure is going to be on Greece, but that's it for that match. We have another match coming up very, very soon. So don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.
We're almost there. Quiet down, everyone. This is not like any of our previous expeditions. This will be far more ambitious. We're stepping into a land of primordial wonder. Infused with astonishing elemental energies. The plant life here holds very unusual properties. So don't touch anything. And while you may be excited to see the local fauna, you might want to make sure they don't see you. Because their powers of adaptation are devastating. Make no mistake, we will be tested at every turn. But if we stay on our guard, we might just survive. Now then, are you ready? Then let's journey into Ongoro Crater.